Hello and welcome to That British Homestead. My name's Nick and today I thought I'd take you through how I'm going to be sprucing up this tired old summer bed. Let's get started. So it is actually the end of November. This video was filmed on the 26th of November, which was yesterday. It's now Sunday. And I'm basically at the point where I'm having to pull everything out and refresh the beds. Not very glamorous work, and I'm telling you, my entire body ached from the amount of heavy lifting that I was doing this whole day. I'm telling you, I've got muscles aching that I didn't know existed just a few days ago. So I'm starting out pulling out all the weeds. Okay, it's not glamorous, it's not great, no one likes doing it, I know, but someone's got to. And you know what, I've actually really enjoyed every minute I was down the allotment today, so I'm not going to moan. And I'm basically putting them into this rubble sack or old sack that someone's used for house coals. Not me, sadly, I don't have an open fire. It would be lovely if I did. I love the sounds of them. Aww. Anyway, I take them over to my wonderful chickens, which will turn these into the best thing ever, fertiliser, which they will spread all over their lovely little enclosure. Ultimately, letting them out and peck around whilst I was here would have been best, but Mr. Fox would have liked that way more, because if you know anything about allotments, there's foxes here 24/7. I once left some butterfly cakes out when Jasmine and Bob were down here with me to go and get something from the car, and by the time I came back, the fox has eaten them all. That is how often foxes come over to your plot before you even know it, that I just assume that they're always here. If I'm not looking, they're going to be here, so I don't want to let them out just in case. And that would be terrible. If anything happened, I'd literally never be able to live for myself. So that's why I don't let them out. I bring them the treats instead of bring them to the treats. So that's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm going to be pulling out all of these weeds. It's time for a little revamp. This particular bed is Jasmine's bed, and Jasmine absolutely despises weeding. So that's why she's not here at the moment helping me. Isn't she lucky? And basically what I'm going to be doing is kind of setting it up for like the best sort of outcome for her. So I'm going to be pulling up all of this black plastic, which I use to suppress the weeds, believe it or not. But because we've had so many tomatoes on here, and Jasmine basically, whilst helping me, which I'm very grateful for, Jasmine kind of squished most of them into the ground, so which have basically broken down and now becomes compost. So I'm going to make sure I remove all of them. It's going to be very fun today. And where all of the mud has sort of gathered up in the fold of this black plastic, because basically it's just been left for a year, it has produced a lot of basically mud, and the mud has made the perfect environment for weeds to grow on top. As you can see, it's not even very difficult to pull these weeds off, but it is very frustrating that they are growing on there. And I wanted to take this opportunity where I'm not really doing very much. I'm going to be pulling this up. I do have tons of things I need to be planting out, but you can't plant anything out until you've got the bed sorted. I hope everybody's in agreement of that, because if not, please tell me how I could do it without having the bed sorted, because that'd be easier. Basically what I'm doing, pulling up all of these things. I've got some cosmos here, but they're basically finished and they mulch down really nicely. I'm sort of using this bag as a place to put all my things that need to be composted as well. I do use laminate to hold down the sheeting, especially in the winter, because we have really, I want to say really strong storms, but I know that some places around the world have storms that are ridiculously strong, and nothing, like ours are nothing, but they are quite strong storms. As you know, I've lost a greenhouse to one, so I consider them quite strong. So basically we weight everything down as much as possible so that they are prepared for these storms. Now, I am taking out all of the border plants as well. We kind of pulled this one forward to grow them cosmos, and now they've died down. A load of weeds have taken over. I was feeling quite triumphant over the weeds only a little while ago, and they've actually managed to get a really good footing since I felt really triumphant about them. But it's one of those things, the longer you stay on an allotment, the easier it is for you to tackle the weeds. I do strongly believe that, and the less time you had, the harder it is. This is my second growing year on this particular allotment. I say second full growing year I'm going into. It's like 1.5 growing years at the allotment, and it is one of those things that every single year I find the weeds a little bit easier to manage. So as you can see, I'm just pulling this back. I'm actually going through and picking up the bindweed as well. As you know, on this particular allotment I have a big issue with bindweed. Well, not a big issue, I should say. It's more like a slow, tedious problem with bindweed, and I find this black plastic really good for tackling with the bindweed, because the bindweed can grow under it but it can't grow up and actually produce any form of leaves or anything like that. So it is quite good in that aspect. So I can come through and just pick it up, and basically what I'm doing is weakening and weakening and weakening the bindweed. Now, I could go through and dig it all up and try to get as much as possible, but it is one of those things that as soon as you break the bindweed, it becomes a different plant, because they're rhizomes. So I'm going to take the slow and steady approach, but obviously it's something that you have to think about yourself. The frustrating thing on this allotment is, as you can see on that wall between mine and the front allotment, it's one of them things where my neighbour has it and it grows over to my allotment as well, and there's not very much I can do about that. When it comes over to my allotment, I do go ahead and pull it, but it's one of those things, so I'm not going to get too worried about it. This is a load of straw, and I've also got a load of horse manure as well, and I'm hoping that they're going to mulch down quite nicely. The straw is really good to keep the soil nice and warm and mulch down, so I thought I'd take that, as it's in people's way, and most people didn't want it, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take that. Now, it took about 3 or 4 barrels, I think it was 3 barrels, to absolutely cover this little area, but it's not a very big area at all, but I did want to do it quite thickly, so that's what I went ahead and did. Now, this is kind of back-breaking work for me personally. You might think it's quite easy, but I was down here from 9 o'clock till about 5 barrowing, which is probably my favourite thing to do. No, I would rather weed all day than barrow. It's not bad, it's just very, very exhausting, because it's been raining quite a lot, and because of the rain, the compost is incredible, or manure I should say, is incredibly very, very, very thick and like wet, so it's very difficult to move around, which makes it incredibly heavy. This would be so much easier to do in the summer. The only problem is that it would be completely full in the summer, so I wouldn't be able to do it, but you know what I mean. It's very exhausting work. It's very, very slow, tedious and heavy work. So I've just covered it up with a few inches of manure, all around. I'm being careful because I've got that little mini tree in the middle, made sure that's nice and covered as well. And what I'm going to do is just go over this black plastic and pull off any of the weeds that do remain there, because to be honest, I had to call it like the first pluck, like you do a chicken, and then the next day it's so much easier. So once you've moved it all, it's actually so much easier, because they aren't actually hiding into creases, because you're pulling all the creases out, and it is easier to do. Now, I am going to re-put this plastic down, because this is Jasmine's garden, okay? So I can't expect her to keep it pristine and not weed free and everything. And as we all do, when you come back and you see the garden has completely, utterly been covered in weeds, it's really disheartening. And although it's nice to have this sort of area as a garden, I don't want her to feel disheartened every time she comes down to the allotment to do a little bit of gardening, that she has to pull all of these weeds out again. So the black plastic does help. I'm thinking that she absolutely loves flowers. I'm thinking about putting some extra marigolds, etc., into this particular garden with her the next time she's down. I thought that'd be nice. Did I say marigolds? I meant daffodils. I've got, I think it's like 100 daffodil bulbs, and as you probably don't remember, but round the corners of this where the weeds are, there are probably 100 marigolds. I keep saying marigolds, daffodil bulbs, and I thought that'd be quite exciting. Now this is the other half of the allotment well, her side of the allotment. Basically going to do the same thing. It's a little bit difficult because I've got lots of strawberries around the outside, and you'll never guess what. When I'm like pulling out all the weeds and stuff, I found some of the strawberries actually had like large strawberries on them. They were white, but still, like, I genuinely think that this time of year is much warmer than any other time of the this time of the year. So I think that the ground actually thinks it's spring. And like, I remember last year being really cold and having hard frosts and stuff. I don't think that we've had like a hard frost. Maybe even a frost at all. Normally this is the time, like on about the 4th of November, we have our first frost. I'm not saying that it's great. It's very wet. But I'm having issues with, say, cabbages bolting, and I generally think that is because they think it's spring, so they're bolting instead of going into winter. I thought it was just very interesting. Things are growing fast. I'm still getting sprouting peas and things like that coming up through the ground. So it's one of those things that are interesting, but like, what can you do? I can't change the weather. It's just interesting because normally you're complaining it's too cold. It's just very warm this time of year. It's like slightly chilly some days, but it's nothing to like winter. So I'm not going to complain because it's absolutely delightful, but it is something that's interesting. The strawberries are nothing to complain about as well. They're called Cambridge favourites. They're the type of strawberries that I grow. I also have 2 different types of strawberries. One that I think my mum gave me 2 plants. One of my friends gave me 1 plant, and one of my other friends gave me a couple of plants. So I don't know what variety they are, but most of the ones I grow are Cambridge favourites. If you just buy a couple of plants, like 10, they soon like quadruple over the years. So I now have close to 12 million strawberry plants that I actually have to resettle this year. I might actually bring them over the allotment and cover them up with some netting, etc. Because, to be honest, I just have too many at home. So I might do that. I have some ideas. I haven't chosen anything yet, but I have some ideas. Now, as you can see, I'm just going to be pulling out the rubbish here and the weeds. It's one of those things over the allotment that you can easily get a load of rubbish because you end up bringing plastic over here and then putting it down saying, oh, I'll definitely bring that home in a minute, and never getting round to it. It is something that I'm absolutely terrible at. I have kind of made myself a promise that I will remember to take it home, but that plastic you saw me pull off, I'm not going to lie to you, I forgot to bring it home. So it's a work in progress. I'm also going to go through and pull all of the dead leaves off the strawberry plants. I like to do that a couple of times a year, but as you can see, they're not even gone dormant yet. They are thriving because I genuinely think it's spring. But so does the bindweed because it's very frost tender as well. Now the days are still getting shorter, but it's not very long until the shortest day, which is the 21st of December, and that's when my ducks will start laying again. So I'm very excited about that. But you can see that it is just truly very warm for this time of year. I do have a lot of bindweed along the sides here. I am working just like before, working through pulling it out when I do see it. It is churning up the soil somewhat, but what can you do? I've also, I said, didn't I, that I'm pulling up, you see how much bindweed I'm pulling up all this bindweed. I've noticed that the daffodils are actually starting to sprout, which is madness. I told you it's very warm. So I am going ahead and like replanting any of the daffodils I'm inadvertently pulling out, and also the strawberries as well. If I pull out a strawberry that has roots and a runner, then I'm going to go ahead and put it back. I've also noticed that you can see here just that netting has actually come out from the wall. I do need to put a couple more staples in it, and that might be where the rabbits are getting through. So I couldn't work out how before the rabbits were getting through. I was like sitting there thinking, why, how can these rabbits possibly be getting through this fence? But now I can see that I've actually not stapled it. So I'm going to go ahead and put some staples or maybe some U-shaped nails in and basically finish that up so that they can't actually get through, because I am having issues with rabbit damage. I'm also going to, fingers crossed, fix the fence between the 2 allotments so that it has smaller wires, they don't jump through both the allotments. But these are the sort of things that I can do like in the heart of winter, because in the heart of winter there's not really much gardening left to do. You kind of just come here and potter about. So whilst I'm pottering about, it would be good to have like little jobs to do. So I'm going to make myself like a to-do list for the winter jobs. Now I'm hoping that over the next few weeks, while we go into like deep winter but it's not incredibly cold, I finish off the sort of moving and the manure and doing the beds. Now this bed that I've just done for Jazzy is the last bed that I need to do on this side of the allotment. There's one other bed that I can do, but it's got so many weeds on it that I'm just going to cover it up with plastic, let it die off and do it a little bit later. Now the other side of the allotment, I have only done one bed, so I have an incredible amount of time and stuff to do over that side, which of course I'm incredibly looking forward to. It is nice, like I feel so accomplished when I've done a bed. I'm not gonna lie to you, like I'm so proud of myself that I like proper applied myself. It's incredible amount of work and I'm not being ungrateful. I'm so grateful that someone has taken the time out of their day to come to the allotment to drop off some manure. I can't express how thankful I am to that. Why? Because I had to drive about 40 minutes out of my way to go and get one lot of horse manure that could do about one bed, and I would drive 40 minutes there, 40 minutes back, travel it in my car, right, bagged up obviously. It's where I got the bags from that you saw earlier. However, imagine doing all that, having to spade it into bags, literally wheelbarrow it from the car into the allotment and then move it around the allotment. It was exhausting. I couldn't do that all in one day. So what I was going to do is dig it all up and then I'd put it in the car and then the next day I'd have to come down and spread it. So like, this is a godsend. I'm not complaining. However, it is a lot of work and I just want you to know that. I don't know why, I just need you to know that. But I'm incredibly proud of myself and it is so, like, I feel so accomplished for doing all of this in one day, and I just feel very, very proud of myself. I came back, I was so exhausted. I just like practically stared at a wall for an hour and then fell asleep. And basically, I just feel very, very accomplished for doing this. Now, if I get this all done by the spring, I am in one massively fantastic position for the summer, basically. I am going to be so chuffed. And guess what I did yesterday? Right? It might have been today. Can't remember, the days are blended into one. I think it was today. Anyway, I bought sweet potato slips. I've never grown sweet potatoes before, but I feel super inspired because of all of this sort of things, and I'm going to do it. And once you buy sweet potato slips, you keep a sweet potato and make the slips yourself. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm so excited about this. Like, I can't express it any more than that. I'm going to make slips from now on by myself. So I'm very cool, like very, 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 very happy with that. Now, I feel like, I don't know if this is true, so let me know if you know any different, but the ones in the supermarket I've noticed are from like here, there and everywhere, and I'm a little bit nervous about growing sweet potatoes from another climate, sorry, because for example the ones I see, I think they were from Spain or something. Spain is a beautiful country with wonderful weather. We do not have the same climate as Spain, so I'm worried about them being a longer season sweet potato and we need a super short sweet potato season. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in and hopefully get some sort of harvest in the manure. In my head it's a really good idea. Like I said, I've never grown them before, but I have heard that some varieties do really well in the UK, so I'm quite excited about seeing that. My neighbour in front of me has actually grown sweet potatoes, but I don't think they've harvested them yet. So when I see her, I will be asking how her sweet potatoes went. But I've like done it. I've bought them. So I think I bought 10 plants, one purple and one orange. I do want to get another 5 that are white, just because in my head they're like super nice. I am pretty much the only person who eats sweet potatoes. Jasmine eats sweet potatoes raw. I never know if you can eat them raw, but she does. So, like, I limit the amount she eats raw. It does taste a bit like carrot, like starchy carrot. So it's nice. but it is one of the things that make jasmine unique. One of the many things that make jasmine unique. So here we have some more of that fantastic bindweed. And do you know what? I find bindweed, pulling up bindweed, so satisfying. Like, look at it. Oh my goodness. It's so nice. It's so easy to do. You literally pick it up and look, it's easy. And then you roll it up and then you put it, and it's easy. Now, I did have a viewer tell me to put them in water and like weigh them down and use it as a fertilizer. I have done that with this. I listen, guys, I listen. So I'm going to make it into my own liquid tea, as it were, and then it turns into like a foul, disgusting slop, and then I can go ahead and pour the slop into the compost. So I'm very excited about that. I have read that you need to do it for a minimum of 3 weeks so that they actually drown and die. I'm a little bit nervous about pouring them and spreading them on my plot if they're still alive and viable. But I have to say, I am really, really a pro. I'm very pro pulling out these ones because they're so easy to do. I don't like, or I find it harder to do stinging nettles because A, they sting, and B, they're very difficult to get up off the ground. In my experience, they're very deeply rooted, so there is that to it as well. Now, like I said, I am putting this on rather thickly, and I'm going to just kind of smear it about. I did find Jasmine has a mud kitchen, and at the bottom of one of the barrels she'd put tons and tons of my beautiful compost, so I did pour it out onto the floor there just so that it was like out of the tin so it didn't rust through over winter. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover it up again. I'm quite happy with the fact that this was done because I do think Jasmine's going to be super happy when she sees it, because it is something that she wouldn't be able, well, she would help, don't get me wrong, and she'd be amazing at helping, but it would be something she'd struggle to do. So I'd rather do it for her, and then she could help on my plot if she wants to. If not, she can just go and play with the birds or play in the manure, probably making little manure castles, knowing Jasmine, or just finding all the worms and feeding them to the birds, something like that. Now, all of these weeds are going in to see the chickens. The chickens absolutely love it. As you can see, they're running away from me, but I put them down in the corner. They do come over and they do pick through them. It's probably their favourite treat because it's got worms and bugs and all sorts of slugs in it, and they will pick through it, and that is like a lovely little treat for them that's super healthy. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe.